Somewhere, right now, there's a paleontologist who has genuinely been asked this question at a dinner party. What would Tyrannosaurus rex actually taste like? It sounds like a joke. It isn't. Scientists have real evidence based opinions on this, built from muscle biology, evolutionary biology, and strangely enough, ostrich farming. And the answer is stranger and more specific than chicken. Let's start with the obvious problem. No one has ever eaten a T Rex, and no one ever will. But we don't need a live sample to make an educated guess about flavor, because meat flavor isn't some mysterious, unpredictable quality. It comes down to a fairly short list of measurable biological factors: muscle fiber type, fat content, diet, age, activity level, and evolutionary relationship to animals we've actually eaten. And on every single one of those factors, we actually have real data about T Rex, pulled from decades of fossil analysis, and in one remarkable case, actual preserved soft tissue. Let's start with the single most important clue. T Rex's closest living relatives aren't lizards or crocodiles, despite how dinosaurs get portrayed in most pop culture. They're birds. This isn't a loose metaphor. It's a direct, well established evolutionary relationship. Birds are, technically and cladistically, a surviving lineage of dinosaurs, and T Rex sits closer to modern birds on the evolutionary tree than it does to any modern reptile. In 2005, paleontologist Mary Schweitzer made headlines by extracting soft tissue from a T Rex femur roughly 68 million years old, including preserved proteins. Subsequent analysis of collagen sequences from that tissue showed meaningful similarity to chicken and ostrich proteins, more so than to any reptile tested. So the tastes like chicken joke isn't entirely wrong, it's just radically oversimplified. Here's where it gets more specific. Modern birds have two broadly different types of muscle fiber, and the ratio between them dramatically affects flavor and texture. There's white muscle fiber, built for short, explosive bursts of speed, which is what you find in chicken breast. Lean, mild tasting, relatively low in fat, because a chicken barely uses those muscles for anything sustained. And there's red muscle fiber, built for endurance, packed with far more myoglobin, the oxygen-storing protein responsible for a deeper red color and a noticeably richer, more intense flavor. This is why duck and goose meat, genuine endurance flyers, taste so much stronger than chicken breast, which barely flies at all. So which type would dominate in T. rex? Nearly all serious paleontological analysis points toward the same conclusion: a massive amount of red muscle fiber concentrated in the legs, hips, and tail. T. rex was a huge, active, ground-based predator, likely capable of sustained pursuit rather than short, explosive bursts. Some biomechanical studies estimate T. rex could reach walking to jogging speeds sustained over meaningful distances, an endurance muscle profile, not a sprinter's profile. That points strongly toward dense, dark, iron-rich meat, closer in character to duck leg or game meat like venison, rather than anything resembling pale, mild chicken breast. Then there's body size itself. Adult T. rex is estimated to have weighed somewhere between 8 and 9 tons, roughly 1.5 African elephants. Larger active predators generally develop denser, tougher muscle fiber and more connective tissue than smaller animals, because that tissue has to support far more mass under greater mechanical load day after day for years. This is why an old rooster is tougher than a young chicken, and why game meat from large, well-exercised wild animals tends to be denser and chewier than factory-farmed meat raised for tenderness. A T. rex was almost certainly built more like tough, working game meat than tender, farm-raised poultry. Age matters here too. Growth ring analysis on T. rex leg bones, similar to counting tree rings, has allowed paleontologists to estimate individual ages surprisingly precisely. Some specimens, including a well-studied individual nicknamed Sue, are estimated to have lived to around 28 or 30 years old, remarkably long for a dinosaur this size. In basically every animal we actually eat, older individuals consistently, produce tougher, more strongly flavored meat because muscle fiber and connective tissue keep building throughout life. An old, battle-scarred, 30-year-old apex predator would likely have been almost comically tough and intensely flavored. Diet is another major factor. T-Rex was an apex carnivore, and diet directly shapes meat flavor across essentially every predator species we've studied. Carnivorous animals frequently develop noticeably stronger, gamier flavor profiles than herbivores, largely due to differences in the fatty acids present in their diet. This is why bear meat and other predator meats, in the rare cases people have eaten them, tend to taste considerably stronger than deer or cattle. A T-Rex, sitting at the top of its ecosystem's food chain, would very likely have carried a bold, unmistakably gamey flavor profile, probably far more intense than most modern diners would find pleasant on first bite. Fat distribution is the hardest piece to estimate with confidence. Modern reptiles and modern birds distribute body fat quite differently, and we don't know with certainty which pattern T-Rex followed. Some researchers speculate T-Rex may have stored significant fat reserves to survive extended periods between successful hunts, given how physically demanding and risky hunting large prey actually is. If accurate, T-Rex meat may have carried noticeably more marbling than lean modern reptile meat, more comparable to a well-marbled cut of beef than to the leaner profile of something like alligator. It's worth comparing T-Rex against an animal we actually eat, the alligator. Alligator meat is often described as mild and slightly chewy, closer to firm white fish, because alligators are ambush predators that spend most of their time nearly motionless, conserving energy rather than actively pursuing prey. That's almost the opposite activity profile from T-Rex, which strongly suggests T-Rex meat would have been nothing like alligator, despite both being loosely classified as giant reptilian predators in most people's mental picture. So, pulling every thread together, T-Rex meat was very likely dark, dense, intensely flavored, and genuinely tough, probably closer in character to a well-aged game. Meat, like wild boar or dark duck leg, than to anything resembling mild chicken breast. It almost certainly would have needed extremely long, slow cooking, braising, or extended slow roasting at low temperatures to become anything close to palatable, the same way old, tough working animals generally require slow cooking to break down dense connective tissue. There's one more fascinating detail worth mentioning. Paleontologists studying that same preserved T-Rex soft tissue found collagen structures measurably closer to modern bird collagen than to modern reptile collagen. That's not speculation. It's published, peer-reviewed lab analysis of actual dinosaur tissue, which means the closest living taste experience any of us could legitimately access might already exist right now in the animal you'd least expect. A tough, well-exercised farm bird, or an old game bird like pheasant or wild goose, slow cooked for hours until the dense connective tissue finally breaks down into something rich and deeply flavorful. We'll never actually taste T-Rex. The last one died roughly 66 million years ago, alongside every other non-avian dinosaur on Earth. But thanks to genuine muscle biology, real evolutionary relationships, actual fossilized soft tissue analysis, and honest cross-species comparison, we can build a surprisingly specific, well-reasoned picture of what it likely would have tasted like. Not chicken, not even close. Something considerably darker, tougher, gamier, and far more intense. Something that would have demanded real patience, real skill, and a very, very big pot. If you like this video, like and subscribe for more.